As the young individual contemplated looking back, numerous identical monsters reappeared, poised to attack Chen Jialao. The baboon, engaged in sword practice, consistently expressed dissatisfaction with the cutting power of his sword. Persistently swinging his sword, the youth aimed to slash a rock in front of him until it shattered. Despite his efforts, he believed the sword's potency remained insufficient. The baboon, still wearing a mask, gasped for breath, contemplating the possibility of losing to Chen Jialao, a healer without elemental powers. Chen Jialao demonstrated the ability to unleash a lethal force that induced involuntary trembling in his body. Even after witnessing Grandpa Albert use a technique to restrain Chen Jialao for the first time, the old man appeared to struggle to withstand Chen Jialao's strength. Standing at the cliff's edge, the baboon pondered the true identity of Chen Jialao. Meanwhile, Chen Jialao was immersed in killing Datam in a mysterious area within the Latin AA desert. Jumping and slashing monsters, he eventually reached level 25, earning 40 status points and the ability to open a medicine shop. The system presented Chen Jialao with the option to utilize 15 levels to open a medicine shop. After slaying monsters, Chen Jialao took a moment to decipher the significance of the drugstore. He found it bothersome that, instead of being rewarded for leveling up, he was asked to invest 15 levels in opening a drugstore. Reflecting on this mechanism, he concluded that each subsequent level up would become more challenging. Examining the hologram screen, he determined that the prudent choice was to farm at a level sufficient to start, enabling him to access higher tiers first. Despite this, he acknowledged the need to complete the Beast King mission, which required consuming more levels. Consequently, he opted to equip himself with medicine for survival. He purchased a recovery-type medicine, costing only 8 levels to instantly restore 50% of HP. Additionally, he acquired a drug named Crumb Burning Tears, requiring 10 levels for 300% damage and a burning effect lasting 20 seconds. Chen Jialao then utilized more medicine consumption to open a shop and acquire the Berserker of Death skills, obtaining them with an expenditure of 8 levels. Now Chen Jialao only has 2 levels. Now he has a life guarantee, so he can be more certain to win in the next duel. But suddenly, this young man's stomach was rumbling so loudly that he had to open another hidden shop to buy daily necessities. Chen Jialao thought that killing a lot of monsters would take a lot of energy, so he needed some food from the hidden shop. But now he only had 1 level, so he hesitated about whether to buy food until finally he found a basket of bread that can restore energy and reduce hunger even though the price is cheap. This youth remembered that Albert's grandfather had told him that the monster colony was in the northwest, but he chose to follow the directions on the map to find the colony's location. Suddenly, the system appears and gives a hint that there are 45 status points that have not been allocated. Chen Jialao must immediately make a choice and remember that the points that have been applied cannot be changed again. Chen Jialao just remembered that he still has status points. This young man wondered where the points should be allocated based on Chen Jialao's previous choice. Although his strength and agility had increased greatly, his MP and defense were still too low. If later Chen Jialao has skills that require MP, then the lack of mana will make the skills he has not run optimally and are limited. Chen Jialao realized that he could gain status by increasing unlimited levels. As long as he had a strategy for adding different status points every time, he would be able to perfectly obtain the combat effectiveness he wanted. So this young man is betting 15 points on stamina and 15 points on strength, and the remaining 15 points will be divided into defense, agility, and MP, which are 5 status points each. Now, Chen Jialao is ready to find the monster's lair and complete the mission. Sally, who was currently waiting in the village, asked Grandpa Albert if it was okay to let Chen Jialao go alone to the monster's lair. Albert's grandfather, who was hoeing in the field, said that the girl needed, after all, Chen Jialao was already equipped with Grandpa's sword. As soon as Chen Jialao's life was in danger, the old man could immediately teleport to save him. Grandfather Albert walked to the edge of the field. He knew that no one would be able to stop Chen Jiao's determination to get out of that place. So this old geezer wanted Chen Jiao to see for himself the horrors of the Beast King's lair and the truth of this world. Deep down, Grandfather Albert wished that Chen Jialiao would return with the head of the Beast King. If that happened, then everyone would believe that Chen Jialiao could bring them out of this place as a miracle. Meanwhile, Chen Jialiao still wandered through this strange world for 3 hours. This young man felt like the monster's lair was not far away, but suddenly he heard a woman's voice asking for help. A woman is seen running for help while holding her child. Chenji Liao wondered why there were women and children in this place. And how did they get to this place? The woman approached Chenji Liao to beg for help. The woman looked very scared with her body trembling, begging for help from Chenji Liao. Finally, a monster with a human body appeared and was escorted by two giant monsters with large bodies. Standing in the center was the level 40 wild orc Rasadler, a low-level intelligent monster. On Latin AA, he is able to summon and control wild beast attacks. Chenji Liao realized that the orc monster was at a higher level than the monsters he had faced before. There were even intelligent monsters like the ones encountered before, so this young man immediately ordered the woman and her child to withdraw. The good news from the appearance of these orcs is that it indicates that their nest is not far away. Even so, he still found it strange to have a mother and a small child in a place like this. Chenji Liao started to wonder if they had also just been teleported to this place. Like him, Rasadler's monster ordered the two orc beasts to puff out their shoulders obediently and immediately enjoy the pleasure of chewing up their human opponent. Then ordered the two orc beasts to immediately attack Chenji Liao and enjoy them afterward. Before a single monster could advance, it was already kicked violently by Chenji Liao, then torn to pieces with the sword. The Rasadler monster was getting annoyed because one of his orc monsters was defeated. He asked that one big monster, "Why are you silent?" So he ordered the orc monster to immediately go kill that human. But when the monster saw its partner falling quickly, the big monster immediately fled from the location. Rasadler screamed even more angrily as the monster ran away. He pointed at the two monsters as useless trash, and he said, "Exes can live without them." The Rasadler monster confidently said he would kill that human alone. But just as he finished speaking, Chenjiao's sword tip was right in front of his neck. Chenji Liao threatened the monster to drop the big oil stick and don't move, otherwise its head will fall to the ground. After the monster's weapon was dropped, Chenji Liao asked why the monster was chasing the woman and child. Rasadler even said that he was a servant of the gods, so if a human dared to kill him, he would be punished by the gods. Annoyed to hear that, Chenji Liao directly stabbed the monster's right side of the face without hesitation. Without further ado, Chenji Liao asked where the monster's lair was. The desperate Rasadler finally pointed to a mountain as his lair. Chenji Liao realized that the monster wasn't lying because its location matched the position shown by the map system. The Black Rock Mountain was precisely the lair of the orcs. When it sensed that Chenji Liao was off guard, the orc monster dashed over to the woman and child who were hiding behind the rock. He took the weaklings as captives, then said that Chenji Liao wanted to protect the two of them, but now he would let the young man see the necks of the two weaklings being slowly broken by him, and then suck their blood, showing its true strength. As the orc monster began to seriously exert its power, Chun Jiao immediately dashed towards it with his feet ready to kick. But strangely, from the other side of the monster's body, there was another one who prepared a kick, until finally, the orc monster was hit by kicks on both sides of the face until he almost died with a battered face because it was kicked by two people at once. The orc monster was thrown quite far. Chenji Liao finally caught the eye of the strange man before him. The man with blonde hair praised Chen Jiao's kick, which was quite great. Apparently, the man with the blonde hair had come with several colleagues. Chen Liao asked, who were they, and how did they get here? The blonde-haired man replied, 3 days ago, he and company were mysteriously teleported to that place until they were attacked by orcs. The blonde-haired man introduced himself as Brass, and he was a warrior. He reached out to Chen Lao and said that he was happy to meet Chen Lao. Then he introduced a man with a hood on his head as Filorga, who was an assassin. Then he also introduced the only woman in their group named Rachel. That woman was a healer. Chen Lao shook Brass's hand and introduced himself. Then Brass asked, what was the reason for the young man being sent to this place? Chen Jiao replied that he didn't know, but maybe the orc they just kicked out knew something about this. The orc was irritated at being treated like this. He thought that insects like humans would sooner or later all die, but just as he finished thinking like that, he was surrounded by the humans around him. Even so, the orc still said they were just a bunch of bugs. But how dare they disrespect the divine messenger? God will definitely kill them all. Chen Jalal, who was annoyed at hearing the orc monster's words, immediately dropped his sword in front of the monster to threaten him. Then he bowed casually before Rasadler, saying he had a few questions for the monster, and if the monster doesn't want to die, he'd better tell everything. Rasadler looked panicked, because even though he had told the truth, our Chenji Liao also showed a friendly demeanor. The monster gave an excuse for its current status. Only a few things he knew. What is known is that the gods actually caught the humans to serve as food for them, and according to him, he lived in that place according to the will of the god. He didn't know anything else but that. Meanwhile, in the town of Delks, Grandpa Albert is having an important meeting with the town councilors. Albert's grandfather was considered naive because despite all these years, he remained firm in his convictions. Even if that elder brother finds out my location, then what will he do? According to one of the councils, they won't be able to defeat the monsters guarding the shrine at all. A talking monster named Hicks. He is one of the higher-ups who have the wind element. Hicks looked completely displeased that Grandpa Albert had pinned his hopes on a boy who hadn't even mastered elemental powers yet. Besides, Grandpa Albert should know the consequences of angering a god. Grandpa Albert accuses Hicks of dressing up his weakness beautifully, so he doesn't have to dirty his own hands and stepping on other people's corpses. Hicks was obviously annoyed by this. He immediately summoned his wind power and deployed an attack on Grandpa Albert, while saying that he would deal with Grandpa in the name of a god. With no intention of dodging or counterattacking, Grandpa Albert stood still where he was until finally, a protective barrier appeared and destroyed Hicks's attack. Seeing that Hicks was getting angry, but Grandpa Albert refused to train him and chose to turn away. Grandpa Albert said that he could not enjoy life standing over other people's corpses. He will take up his weapon again to find a way out of that place to protect innocent people. In his heart, Grandpa continued, he was going to fight against the god that those people believed in. Hicks brought out his full power and swore at Grandpa Albert, telling him not to look down on anyone else. But Hicks's attack was prevented by one of the counselors wearing a hood. The figure that had been silent until now finally took action, causing Hicks to swallow his anger again, sending humans to Latinia as food for the monsters in that place. If the game and PCs in that place have no emotions, it's probably the usual setting for games like that. But after Chenzalao met Grandpa Albert, Sally and the others realized that they could no longer be considered mere game settings. They really looked livelier in his eyes, not just NPCs who could be trampled on for fun. Chenzi Liao will not remain silent. He must find the temple of the god Kepri, then take them all out of this place. Chenji Liao wondered if the monster's lair was close to the Kepri temple. After looking at the map, Chengilio knew that the location and direction of the two places were opposite. So this young man was wondering what the monsters were guarding in this place. Could there be another god sealed in this place? Brass called Chenji Liao and said that they were ready to go to the monster's lair. Chenju Liao nodded his head as a sign that he was also ready. Rasadler kept complaining and said that they just wanted to die. The orc monster asked them to talk again. He was going to let them all go, but he promised not to run away. But the three men paid no heed to his words. Reishi was completely ignored while walking down the path to the orc's lair. Meanwhile, in the advice to be precise, in the center of the throne, many humans asked for help because they were roasted and even eaten by orc monsters. Several monsters brought another large cage box filled with humans to the king. It was the food they found today, so they asked the king's permission to eat all the humans. But suddenly there was a very big explosion, and all the troop orcs in the room were frozen in no time. A white-haired man told everyone not to be afraid because he was a great mage, Gome. He would get all humans out of this place. The tough warrior asked everyone in the room if anyone could fight. He was sure if they killed the monster together, they could get everyone in the place to leave. Great Mage Gome looked angry at the orc monster for killing many innocent humans for their own desires. In his opinion, the monster's attitude was truly unforgivable. Today, he would make the monsters pay back for their actions. The Great Mage Gome soared through the air as he mustered all his strength, then attacked the Orc Monster King with the Blizzard Blade skill. The Orc King remained motionless on his throne despite being attacked by hundreds of ice crystals. The crystals immediately stopped because of the king's protective barrier. Then, with one finger raised, the Orc King, who had a hideous face, immediately exploded the Great Mage Gome's body. The extremely powerful Ice Mage exploded in front of everyone, so that all the remaining knights in the cave trembled in fear. Apparently, this is the real strength of the Beast King Fennel, who is level 85. Meanwhile, Chenjul and his new comrades were busy fighting the orc monsters that got in their way. The three of them can work together when defeating a fairly large orc monster. Monster Rassadler was surprised to see the strength of the three of them. Moreover, Chenjilao's strength, according to him, has now grown stronger than when he first fought him. Rassadler wonders who Chenjilao is. Chenjilao realized that the closer they were to the lair, the number of monsters increased, and even their attack power and level had gotten stronger. Even though there is a reduction in level, the exp needed to level up gradually increases. According to the original level, these monsters' exp wasn't low, but it was clear that their level increase had slowed down to the point where they hadn't leveled up yet. But suddenly, Brass's partner interrupted when he said that the entrance to the cave seemed to be already in front of them. Chen Juliao also asked the resident, "Is that the entrance?" But the orc monster managed to untie its bonds and escape. Brass laughed, realizing the monster took the opportunity to escape. While they were busy fighting, Rassadler ran as hard as he could into his lair. He intended to inform the Beast King that there was a human invasion. Maybe then the king will give him a gift. Chen Jiliao and two others entered the cave. Brass was starting to smell the orcs, so he knew the rescheduler wasn't lying to them. The three of them walked down the cave accompanied by torchlight around the cave, a lot of scattered human skulls. They continued to enter the cave without losing their sense of alert. After walking for a while, Brass started to wonder, because it had been a while since they walked, let alone orcs. They didn't even see a single shadow of a monster. Finally, they saw 3 roads forks. Since they had to split up, Brass placed a fire symbol on each of his 2 partners' palms. Brass said that it was a symbol of fire. Since they were going their separate ways, if one of them saw a clue or was in danger, they could cast a spell and send each other over to help. Brass said he would go directly to the left path, Filorga to the right hole, while Chenji Liao would enter the middle one. Brass reminded his 2 friends once again not to forget to cast the spell he had just been taught in case they were in danger. The 3 of them entered together into the cave hole. While running through the caves, Chen Juliao thought the only best way was to level up quickly. But how could he possibly do that if there were no orcs around the area? Until he finally stopped when he heard the sound of someone chewing loudly in front of Chen Jilao. It was now a monster named Hollow Digger Gao, level 47. They were souls left behind by gods in hell. They have a deadly bite, they are afraid of sunlight, and they are flocking creatures. The group of monsters turned to Chen Jilao together. The presence of these monsters was indeed what Chen Jilao wanted, but if their number turned out to be this much, it was clear that even Chen Jilao himself would be confused about defeating them. The number of these monsters is so great because they inhabit the small mountains that are in the cave now. The monsters roared together to attack Chen Jilao. One of the orc monsters reported to the king that they had the arrival of 3 insect intruders. However, they had just entered the trap separately. The monsters were sure they must have been torn to pieces by the ghouls that were in the trap. Sure enough, the ghoul beasts were eager to pounce on Chen Jilao, but they were slashed by him before they may manage to touch Chen Jilao's body. This young man realized that ghoul monsters weren't strong, but there were plenty of them. The amount of exp is also quite large. Therefore, every time he manages to kill 10 ghouls, he gains 20,000 exp.
Love the manhwa? Subscribe for more. Your support makes it all possible. Hit subscribe now!